Hey, we're going to make use of the Windows Phone 7 development and design tools. Firstly, I have to say I've got a blocked ear, and with the mic, it makes me sound a bit weird. So if I sound a bit like Jeremy Clarkson sometimes, then I apologise. But I'll hopefully not overtalk too much. So what are we going to see today, or in this session? A bit of an introduction about myself, why you should care, why it should be interesting. I'm going to talk about the two personas, the dualism that was mentioned in the keynote this morning. And then we're going to look at the two tools that are available to those two alternate personalities that you may be individually representing yourself. Visual Studio, so deep breath, Visual Studio 2010 Express for Windows Phone 7 and Visual Studio Expression Blend for Windows Phone Beta. Okay, I'll show you those things. And then we'll talk about maybe why you want to go to a full version of Visual Studio over Express. Okay. So, introduction. Why should you care what I have to say? I've been an ASP.NET developer for as long as ASP Original's been around, and then ASP.NET. I've been a Silverlight developer for a few years, and in March I went up to Vegas with a couple of Microsoft, a couple of other people, to go to the Mix conference up there, where they launched the Windows Phone 7 developer tools, the first CTP. Went back to the hotel room straight after that first day, downloaded the developer tools, and have been using them ever since. So I kind of felt the pain of the early CTPs and the betas in those tools, and together with a couple of other people, been working together on apps and really learning what Windows Phone 7 is all about and how it works. So I'm not a Microsoft employee. I have to wear the shirt, but I'm not an employee. I actually work for Datacom. So hopefully what I have to say is a little bit less biased than what Microsoft would say. And I'm only going to show you things that are available in the tools that you can download today. Okay? There's been an announcement that if you wait till September the 16th, you can download the release version of those tools, which will have the full pivot panorama control and some other stuff, and a better emulator than what I'm going to show you today. But basically, otherwise, everything I'm showing you is in the tools you can get today. Okay. Just before I carry on, just the quick obligatory survey. Who developed Silverlight in the room? Hands up. Okay. Who's sort of C# developers? Okay, good. That's good to know. Who's got a Windows Phone 7 in their pocket right now? Got you on that one. All right. So, the Windows Phone 7 experience is a completely brand new phone experience. It is nothing like what's come before. It's nothing like Windows Mobile. It's nothing like iPhone. It's nothing like Android. And I think it's a really, really good story. It's a really good news for me as a gadget freak. It's another thing I should say. I review gadgets for TVNZ Breakfast. So in the last 2 months, I've played with iPhone 4, Nexus 1, Galaxy, Milestone, a few other phones. So I know my phone stuff. And this phone is really, really, really good. Okay? So you have to believe me on that. The other reason it's good for developers, though, is that you get to use the latest tools. Okay? So if your boss won't fork out for Visual Studio 2008, you can't get an upgrade, or Visual Studio 2010, you can download these tools and get the experience of Visual Studio 2010 and Expression Blend 4 for free. Okay, that's really cool. You can make money in your spare time or in your real time. So if you develop an app, you can actually put it up on the marketplace and sell it and make yourself some spare petty cash. And it is actually really, really fun. I've had more fun in the last 6 months of development than I have in the previous 5 years. Just really, really enjoy the development. The development flow, and then when seeing your devices on the phone, seeing your apps on the phone is really, really cool as well. It's a certain something that, if you develop an app for a computer and turn it on, it's not quite as nice as putting it on a phone and seeing it running on the device. So the thing about this phone is end user experiences are very, very, very important. Okay, I'm a real nitpicker when it comes to the way these things behave, and I love the way the phone is incredibly responsive and incredibly reactive to your input, and that really has to carry across into your applications as well, because if you don't, people will give you a 1-star review and no one else will buy your app. Okay, it's well proven in the iPhone App Store. The first couple of reviews are what matter. Okay, so you can think of this in two ways. Wrong computer. You can think of the end user experience and how you create the end user experience from two directions. And this is, again, the dualism type thing. Whether it's the Hardhat, I call them the Hardhat and the Beret. They call them developers and designers, or developers, or what is it, designers, or designer piz, or whatever they call them. So usually, though, you tend to be one first, then the other, or you tend to be more of one than some of the other. Okay. So for me, I'm a Hardhat, pretty much. I love my Beret, but I am a Hardhat through and through. BSc in computer science. I think about the code first. I think about architectural patterns. And I debug all the time, step through, check everything out. I care about how things behave in a computational manner, sort of thinking about computational complexity and not doing horrible search algorithms, this sort of stuff. But I do have a touch of the Beret in me. I'm not good at it, but I do think about design, and I do think about the form and the function of something, whether positioning something in a particular way is a good thing or a bad thing. Colours, highlight, this sort of stuff. Don't use a blue colour to denote something that's hot, or don't touch. That's just it makes sense, right? Don't put a handle on a door that says push. That sort of stuff. That's the designer thinking. You might be a bit of a font nerd. You might care about the difference between Arial and Helvetica. Who in the room likes Helvetica? Who likes Arial? Get out. And you may care more about pretty patterns, Paisley and that sort of stuff, as opposed to architectural patterns. I don't know, but that's kind of the truth of the matter is, though, most of the time you have to be both. And whether that's because it's only you doing your development, there's no one else to help you, or whether it's because you don't have any designers in your company, or whether it's because designers isn't thought of highly enough, you do have to wear that beret yourself a bit. So I'm going to show you these tools. I'm going to show you Visual Studio Express first, which comes from the kind of Hardhat perspective. Then I'm going to show you how to put a beret on top of that. And it's not too scary from a developer point of view. So we've got to have a setup. So my setup is, I put my beret on. Do I go up or down? Hopefully I go up. No, up again. There we go. Wearing my beret, I visit this really cool site. We don't have any wireless connect. Sorry about this, guys. This cool site called colorlovers.com. And what it is, it's social networking for colours. You can go onto the site and you can rate your favourite colour, whether you like black or white or green or red, and you can comment on it, you can promote it, you can say this is the best colour in the world, and you can vote colours up and vote colours down and this sort of stuff. And there's an API for it. So let's try that again. No, we'll ignore it. So the thing is, it has an XML API that allows us to pull down the list of the top 10 colours in the world today, or overall, or whatever, and that's an XML graph, and you can run XSD against that and get back, your objects. Okay. The other thing to think about is when you see an API like that, you didn't see, you should have a look around at the API as well and work out what's available. For example, that API, I can put question mark format equals JSON on the end of it, okay, and that gives it back to me in JSON versus XML. Something you wouldn't normally really care about when you're writing a computer app, but when you're writing a phone app, have a think about it, because if you look at the two files, the XML file is about 150 kilobytes, the JSON file is about 40 kilobytes. And that means, it's a bill in terms of the person using it, how much data they pull down over the wire, its speed, it's how fast it is to update. So that's just a brief aside that before you choose your API, it's really important, because you have to do it early on in the piece. Just make sure you choose the right one. Choose the one that's probably the fastest or the smallest. Okay. So putting on our hard hat, let's have a look at what we get out of Visual Studio Express 2010 for Windows Phone. It's code first. It's got a full-featured debugger, almost full feature. I'll tell you later on what's not in it. And one-click deployment to the phone as well. So this time I'll press down. We'll get there. Okay, so again, I apologize for the resolution here. You wouldn't normally code in 1024x768, but anyway. So this is Visual Studio 2010 Express for Windows Phone, which I might just call Express from now on. And I've just done a file new project and added a couple of files anyway. And hopefully that's familiar to everyone in the room who said they're a C# developer. It looks very friendly. We know it very well. We know about our project tree over here. We can put folders in it. We can do all that stuff that we would normally do in any sort of Visual Studio environment. Then we've got our code window, and in this case we've actually got a split code design window because we've just started a new project which is Silverlight for Windows Phone. Okay, so straight away we can. The point I'm going to make here is I'm going to spend a lot of time on these tools because it's a session about how to use the tools. So I'm going to use the tools. Okay, I sacrificed the goat last night to the demo gods, so we should be good. Okay, so this is XAML. So the Silverlight developers in the room will know it well. The C# developers may not. It's a little bit like HTML in terms of markup. You can put things together in there. So I don't have to look at the design at all. I can start putting things in here, like saying I want a new list box. Okay, and give it a name, color list, because I'm going to fill it with colors later on, and a button to load the colors. So see things. What you're seeing here is in Visual Studio Express, we've got full autocomplete. We've got autocomplete of our expressions and the code we're putting in. So it's closed my speech marks for me. Okay. And when we want to put a new attribute on this button, like the content, we just hit C and we've got all our autocomplete in there. Okay. Content equals load colors. Okay. And we can then switch back to the design view and see how that looks. And hands up who thinks it's going to look great. Ooh, it's horrible, because we're using a grid. Okay. The other thing we've got is the properties window in Express is very fluent. It knows what it's talking about. Okay. So we can go in here and we can look at the grid row definitions as a collection. Okay, you can add a couple. We can set the first one to star, which means fill up all the remaining space. The second one to auto. So we've got multiple ways of solving things here. Okay, and we can put a button in grid.row1. Okay, and that's then looking a bit better. We've got a list and then a button below. And you can see that that's basically changed the code and it's just added some in the middle there, right in the middle of the screen, a row definition and a row definition of height auto. So we could have typed that in XAML. We can use the properties windows. We've got multiple ways to get at the same thing. So it depends on how you feel. I personally like type coding my own XAML. I don't like the idea of a machine creating it for me, but that's just me. Okay. And then in design mode we can do things like double click on a button. A bit faster. And don't you feel better? We're in a code window. You can all relax. Okay? It's okay. It's going to be all right. We've got code here. So the same thing follows through here. We've got full autocomplete in the code window. We can type in web and say, oh, I want to talk to the web some way. I want a web client. Okay. Again, autocomplete. I'm typing about 5 or 6 characters to write that line of code. Just no control space, this sort of stuff. So when I finish downloading from the web client, I want to do something. Open read completed. Plus equals. Look at that. Snippet, tab. I didn't type anything. I just tabbed, and I've got a full method to do something with my web client when it's finished. Right? This is Express, remember. It's free. It's quite, personally, I don't really use the Express tools at all. There's Express for Express for web, and there's Visual Basic Express, all that sort of stuff. But I use the full versions because that's what we're covered for in MSDN at Datacom. But I really was quite amazed in going through this and really, forcing myself to use Express pretty much solely for the last few months. And I haven't really been crippled by anything apart from my favourite tool, ReSharper, that I'll again go into that later on. So, Open Read, async, everything in Silverlight for Windows Phone is asynchronous. We can't actually wait for the thing to finish. All right. So again, autocomplete, new URI. I cheated a bit here by downloading. I put the stuff on my local PC. String. So bear with me. Excuse my typing. So I got the top colors, and put them on my main machine. So we can run that up, okay? So we've got the option up the top here to choose either run it in the device or the emulator. So we can kick it off in the emulator. The emulator again comes free with the tools. So it runs the emulator nice and fast. We can say load colors. Oh, and I hadn't completed the method. I intentionally didn't do that, so I could show you the debugger. Okay, so it's broken in the code because we ran it in debug mode, and I can have a look at the details of it. I can look at my stack trace down the bottom here to see what was called beforehand. This was called asynchronously, so I don't actually have any other code to look back into. All right, and I can stop it there. I can also say, oh, how does it run without the debug. I want to see how it runs in the user's experience. So I can go debug, and this is where I scream and say, where's my start without debugging? What's going on? The problem is, strangely enough, Visual Studio has Visual Studio Express for babies, which is basic settings, and Visual Studio Express for grown-ups, which is expert settings. So the first thing you want to do when you install Visual Studio Express is change it to grown-ups, because we're all competent individuals. And we can actually now say debug, start without debugging. Okay, so you see you've got some extra stuff in the project, some extra stuff in your debug menu. And hopefully now, this is what the user will see on our wonderful app. It just dies. So it doesn't break into the debugger, so you can actually see a bit more about the end user experience. And equally, we can just do the same thing. All we have to do is drop down this thing and say device, okay, up I think it was, and I just hit, whichever way it is, it's the opposite, isn't it? So I'm hitting the play button on my PC, which you don't see, and it's saying deploy successful, and there it is running on the phone, okay, and I can hit load code and it will crash, because I tested it before. It'll actually probably take longer to crash. It's trying to connect to localhost. Interesting. Oh no, actually, it's broken in my PC. Because it was flicked back to debug mode when I changed it to device. Okay, so it's running on the device, debugging on my PC, stopping in the code. Okay, so the code is still running on the device right now. So we can really test things like accelerometer, GPS, other stuff that we won't have access to on our PC. We can test them with the device plugged in and step through the code and see what's going on. So, again, free tools. The phone's not free, but free tools. I can carry that on. I can stop it. And it stops on the device, which we can't flick to yet. But anyway, it's killed. So I'll just change back to emulator for the rest of the session anyway, just to make it easier than flicking back and forth. Okay. So instead, we want to actually do something useful with the return value from that web method. So a little bit of coding here. e.error, so we want to make sure we deal with any errors. Okay. Not equal to null. Talking through my code. We want to see what the error was. Debug dot, oh, nothing there. What's going on? Again, free tool, control dot, thanks to Ian Randall. I always used to use Alt-Shift F10, but control dot is the way to go. And it'll just insert a using in there for me at the top. Okay. Again, I didn't have to type that in. I knew that it was available to me. It just said, yep, cool, you need that. I'll throw it in there. Dot right line. e.error dot message return. Okay. Otherwise, we will see what we get back. No, we need to do a stream reader first. Bear with me. Stream reader, again, is not there. Control dot. Please use system.io. Okay, so the result is a stream back from the web server. Read read to end. Okay. So let's run that up, see what happens in the emulator. So you can see, in the output window there, it's showing you everything that's loaded up as it loads each of its elements. Load color, and there we go, we've got some output in the debug window. Okay. We look at it and we go, oh, it's not all there, what's going on? Obviously the XML isn't completed, isn't closed off. Okay, so there's something strange going on there, so let's stop that and have a look and see what's going on. This is again debug first, serious Hardhat stuff here. So let's put it into an intermediate variable and see what we see. Okay, and then we'll write out the S, the string, and we can put a breakpoint before that so we can inspect it. Get in there. Okay, so you see it's broken in the code, and it's telling us what's going on. We can hover over the S to see what it is. We can use the magnifying glass to go into the inspection window, visualizer. And we can have a look and see, look, there's our XML. Scroll right to the end. It's all finished. It's closed off fine. So that was a bit weird. It's obviously debug.writeLine has a limitation on the length of the string. We can do other things in here, in the intermediate window. So, maybe we want to see how long the string is, question mark s dot autocomplete in the immediate window. S dot length. It tells us exactly what the length of our string is. So the code's stopped and waiting, and we're using Express, but we can really full-featured debugger. We can do whatever we want. We can inspect the code, we can play around with it, and then we can carry on, hit run, okay? And again, see that the output window doesn't have all our data in it. So that's something to be aware of, is long strings to debug.writeLine get cut off. Okay? So we actually want to do something with this. So it's XML, so we can add a reference again, just looking at the things that are available to us, the same as you're used to in your full version of Visual Studio. Okay, system.xml.serialization. So I ran XSD over the XML I got back to generate my classes. Okay. So now we can just say XML serializer control dot, yes, I want to be using in there. Now the spelling is bizarre for all of this stuff because it's called color lovers with a U, but their types are named without a U. So it really confused me for a minute, but I got it. Okay, let's type off there. So I want to deserialize a colors object out of my XML. Okay. Deserialize e.result. Okay, get the stream, deserialize it. Then I just want to say list, the color list we had. So I add it to the original page. Dot item source. Equals my colors. Dot has an array of colors called color. Again, bizarre stuff. I believe we need a cast in there. Thank you. The perils of autocomplete. Run that. And our designer said they wanted a list of colors. There's a list of colors. Done. So we can see, right, that's a list of color objects. Hardhat on, job done, brilliant. Okay, you got scrolling in there, it's all working really well. So, you saw what you could do with Visual Studio Express. We did a demo. So what we saw there is that the anatomy of a Windows Phone Silverlight application is XAML encode behind, and it's a collaboration between the two. Yeah, you could do everything in code. You could create your list in code. You could add it to there. You could create the button in code. You could create your grid in code, all that sort of stuff. But really, you want to be doing the layout stuff in XAML, either with XAML raw code or with the drag and drop in the properties in the Express. But because it's not always the easy road to do the code. So as a software developer, you will have to deal with both of them. All right? Now, maybe a better way to deal with the XAML is to put your Beret on and use Expression Blend for Windows Phone. It's very much more design first. Okay, you're very much more thinking about layout before you think about code and performance. It can become almost completely codeless. I'll demonstrate that to you. Things like button clicks, animations, all that sort of stuff can be codeless. And it has support for design time data, which is actually really neat, and we'll show you that now. Okay, again, we're going to spend some time in these tools. Get down this time. Fingers crossed it's the right way. Excellent. So, stop that debugger. We could go and start up start up Expression Blend and then go and find our project and open it, but we're not going to do that. What we can do is right-click on our main page, and there's a menu option there saying Open in Expression Blend. So we take the plunge and fire on that. Again, the screen resolution is not optimal for this type of product, but zoom out a little bit. So scroll wheel zooms in and out in Expression Blend, so that's kind of useful sometimes. So straight away, it's a very different look and feel to Visual Studio. There are some kind of familiar areas there, like the project list. Okay, that feels a little bit familiar to us. You can see the same list in there. There's also some things that are specific to the phone. So one example is on the phone, you can choose a white background or a dark background. Okay, As a rule, when you write an application and someone's running their white background, you should say, please go and change your background to the black background, because it's horrible. But no, I'm kidding. As a rule, you should support both white background and background, because users can switch between them. So in Blend, you can see what your application would look like under this Device tab. Device there, which you can't see. Okay, so you can hit those buttons at the top left there to switch between the dark theme and the light theme. And likewise, you can see what highlight color they might have chosen. So I had red on my phone. I could change it to red here. Nothing on that page has changed. The thing is, in Blend and in Visual Studio, you have access to the system resources that allow you to code for the phone. So if I want to set, for example, this text to be the highlight color of the phone, there is color resources on the right-hand side here, in that tab there. Okay, you saw that change to that. And one of those resources is phone accent color. All right. So now my text is set to the phone accent color, which is not fixed. It's reliant on what the user chooses. Okay, see that? I'm changing my phone accent color. And I can see how my app would look. So really you want your app to behave happily under all combinations of black background and accent color. So that's something to check. But that's all tooled for you in Expression Blend 4 beta. Okay, so you can check all that stuff out. It's really good. Now, we want to style our list box a bit better. And we have nothing there because this is a design time. The data hasn't been loaded. I haven't hit my web server. I haven't got back my XML. So what's a Beret to do? Okay, this little data tab, the top right here. Okay, there's a really cool tiny hidden thing here saying create sample data. Can you guys see what I'm doing on the screen if I don't move? Okay, excellent. Create sample data from class. Can say, here's my colors class that was in my, that as a developer I dropped into my view model area of the project. Okay. And it's worked out that, it looks at the object graph and sees what it's made up of. Okay, it's made up of an array of colors called color, which is driving me mad, but that's how they name their XML. And has some properties in there. So I can grab that array of colors and drop it on my list box. And it's now data bound to my sample data. Now that looks bizarre, that text. It's lorem ipsum text. It's just generated automatically on the fly. So how do we fix that? We hire a student and get them to click this button here saying edit sample data. Okay? And you look at that and it's just basically an XML file full of, it's worked out that all these things are text, so the URL is text again. So you can see it doesn't make a lot of sense at the moment. Date created. So everything in the XML file is specified as text. And it's gone and filled those in. There is one thing there which you might have seen first, where I've specified a gradient brush in my view model, which we'll use later. And it's even been intelligent enough to work out that a brush could be a solid color. So it's provided us with a solid color, a random solid color for that brush, which again will allow us to use later on in the design mode. Okay? Now I've just quickly fixed up that information with my own sample data. Okay, so I'll grab that out. All I've done, I've added some titles and descriptions to some of the colors, so it makes a bit more sense. So I'll just paste that back in there, and we'll close that. And what you'll see now is buried in these things among here is color 1 description and color 1 title, okay, because those things are bound. So I've added something in so I can see what's going on. What's happened here when I've dragged the array onto the list box, it's bound every property in the list box. So we want to fix that up. Again, in Blend, we can access the Silverlight properties and the Silverlight templates that make up this list box. Additional templates, item template, which is basically the template that each item is using to present its information. Edit current. And now in our objects down the left-hand side, instead of being our page with our page objects, it's now our item template with the objects that make that up. So straight away I can say, well, look, I don't want all these text blocks, I just want two. I just want name and description. Delete all those. Select the first text box, properties. Now, in Blend, you see these little tiny boxes, just here, little tiny boxes next to a lot of your properties. Those basically mean those properties are data bindable. Okay, so I can click on the one here, data binding, title. So it's worked out that this item is presenting a color. It knows what colors are made up of. It's presenting a list to me, nice and easy. Title, second one, bind to data binding description. Okay. And on the stack panel, just to separate things out a bit, we'll add a bit of a margin. I like 7. Okay. So now you can see that's starting to make sense. Each list item is a title and description. I can hit F5 in Expression Blend, Don't have to go back to Visual Studio. Don't have to do anything there. Load colours. And done. Okay, so those are the actual colours, the actual top colours in the world at the moment. Black, white, Dutch teal, which is a kind of off blue, heart of gold. Now, again, as a Beret person, I think, oh, what the hell is Dutch teal and what's heart of gold? I can't see those. So as a developer, as a Hardhat back in Visual Studio, okay, we switch back to Visual Studio. It knows that Blender's done some changes. Do you want to reload those? Yes, please. I want to see the latest changes. In my view model, I amended the view model to provide, let's see if we can find it down here, to provide a gradient brush made up of some sample data. Oh, sorry, made up of the actual data. There it is there, gradient brush, okay? So this is code, creating a XAML property, which is a brush with some gradient stops in it, okay? Starts at transparent at 0.2 and stops at 0.8 it becomes the color of this color, okay? So that's in code, being built in code. Go back to expression blend. So I can choose my stack panel. Background has a little box next to it. Oh, that means it's data bindable. Click on it, data binding, gradient brush, okay. And there's the bindings, those are the random colors of my sample data, remember? Okay. And we can run that up. Now, we could additionally change the template later on to make the width right, but if we load that now, you see it's pulled down the colors of the XML and created a gradient brush in code, and it's bound that to the properties. Okay? And we'll fix up the widths in a second, because it looks horrible. So we want to add, we want to fix up the widths. We also want to add a bit of waggle to this thing. That's what Windows Phone does. You see when you look at it, things wobble. They flick in, they flick out, they jump around. So we want some animation in here, don't we? We want some life to this thing. So we can edit another part of the list box called the item container. Okay, and the item container is basically, well, it's exactly what it says, it's the item container, the thing that contains each of the items, which contains our stack panel. All right? When we do that, it gives us access to all the states of each item container. Now again, the resolution here is not ideal. Let's unpin that. But see on the left-hand side there's all the states that one of these items can be. Okay? Mouse over, disabled, focused, unfocused, selected, not selected. Okay? So those are all available. They're all built into the system, and we can just say, how do I want this thing to look and behave when it is selected, for example. So if I want it to waggle when it's selected, I can say add a transition from anything to selected, okay? And we'll make it a 0.5 second transition. All right, objects and timeline, I'll bring that back. So when we do that, we now have the timeline, which is select the transition, which is an animation. Transition from, again, star, anything, to selected. For half a second, here's a timeline. Now, again, the layout now is like, oh, I've got a timeline, what am I doing? I can't see exactly what I need to do in terms of animation. I want a better visualization of my animation timeline. The Expression Blend 4 has the option of workspaces, okay, at the top there. There's a design and animation one by default. You could actually save your current layout, so that's where things are pinned, which side they're on, what's visible, what's not visible as a workspace. So you just set up how you feel comfortable and you can switch between those workspaces. So let's switch to the animation workspace, because we're doing animation. All right, and you see it just changes the layout subtly so that the timeline is to the fore, because we're doing animation, and yeah, makes it easier to access. So in this case, we want the container to wobble when it's selected, so we are recording. You see that the whole thing's got a red box around it. And at the top left, it says recording, start a selected transition, recording is on. So we know that, so we can say, okay, we're recording. Let's go to the content container, and after 0.2 of a second, we want it to wobble a bit. Okay, so we can look at our transforms down here on the bottom right. Projection transform, maybe in the Y. Okay, so I can project it, whoa, look at that, up and down. Okay, so I want to maybe wobble it away a bit. And then after a few more seconds, another 0.2 of a second, 0.1 of a second, wobble it back to -15. I can type that in. Okay. And then at the end of the transition, make it back to 0. And I can play that. See it wobble? Okay. And that is, again, remember, that's that transition we're recording. So we can now stop recording, go back to our base state. Okay? That transition is there, it's recorded. We'll just make one little change to fix the width, which is in the horizontal content alignment stretch. Okay. Again, so we can edit XAML quite happily in Expression Blend. We don't have to use the drag and drop design tools. Okay, so that's fixed up our width there. And then I can run that from Expression Blend. Load colors. So as I select these items, they should wiggle. There you go. Okay. State transition, easy. So we didn't have to calculate things like angles and projections and write some code to say start when selected, iterate through items, anything like that. We just say if the state's changed from anything to selected, wobble the thing. Go for wobble. There you go. Easy. Okay. Maybe we want to add a custom animation that's nothing to do with states. I'm drying up a bit here. We want the button to disappear when it's loading, or when the loading is complete, as a visual indicator that loading is finished. Okay, so we can actually go in here, bottom here, objects and timelines. We can just add a storyboard. Hang on, I want to go back to the page. Okay, we're on the page now. I don't want to add a timeline to the content template. So, add a storyboard. We'll call it hide button. Okay, so this is non-state driven. I can just change anything I want on the entire page in that storyboard. So again, let's go out to half a second. The load colors button after half a second. I want to be off the side of the screen. So we'll project it out by translate it by 480. Done. Play that. Zooms out. Okay. That's the storyboard. Now we can go back to the beginning and add another keyframe just by resetting this to 0. So these little dots down here, can everyone see these? A dot at the start and end of the storyboard. Those are called keyframes. And the Beret in me says, ooh, keyframes, cool, that means I can do easing. And click on one of those keyframes, and I can make it look more natural. Okay? So I have easing functions in there. So many of them, it's crazy. But what easing does is it basically allows the thing to accelerate slowly and decelerate slowly, or do something like a roadrunner. Back means reverse your direction before you even start. So it looks like the roadrunner going chow off the side of the thing, doesn't it? I like that one. So I'll leave that in. So that's a back and out easing function. Again, just simple. Just do that. Stop the recording just by clicking out, closing that storyboard. So the storyboard's still there. We can have a look at it and close it. And to start that storyboard, do I need code? Hands up who thinks I need code to start the storyboard. You're right. Okay, so let's go back to our design workspace and look at our assets. And under assets, we have all sorts of stuff, shapes, the actual controls are under there, buttons, all this sort of stuff. Behaviors are under here. Oh, look at that. Well, that looks interesting. Control storyboard action. I wonder if that's what we want. Let's just drag that and stick it on a button. Oh, look at that. It's changed over the right-hand side, our properties. Source name load colors, because we dropped it there. Event name click. We're really happy we all know the click event. Storyboard play. What storyboard? Autocomplete. Drop it down. Hide button. Run. So what I did, I dragged an action on and chose hide button. That's all I did. So when you click the button, it disappears. Plays the storyboard. No code. Thanks for the applause. Okay, and again, thinking about the Beret designer interaction, perhaps this thing is going to be a bit slower. So we want the button to hide when the load is finished. That's where we do have to then go back into Visual Studio, because the designer has no idea when the load's finished. They don't see anything going on in the background there. Well, they could, if you wanted to. In Expression Blend, you could open the code file and start hacking on it, okay? But then you slap your designer and say, no, stop it, it's code. And you don't get things like autocomplete in here, so if I want to start typing color list, control space, oh, there it is, control list. I do have autocomplete for some things, not everything, okay? So it really isn't a full-featured tool. You don't have so much debug opportunity and all this sort of stuff in Blend that you do in Visual Studio. So let's switch back to Visual Studio again. Okay, again, it knows it's been changed. So main page, code behind. So perhaps when the open read completed is finished and everything's been done, and then we want to start that animation to hide the button. So hide button. So everything that was done by the designer is still available to me in Studio. Hide button dot begin. Okay. I don't want to run that yet because I need to go back into Expression Blend, which knows something's changed. Reload. And I need to remove that behavior off the button. Otherwise it would play first. Okay. So I can just go in here under my object tree on the left-hand side, delete that behavior. Right. So now the load button will fire. It'll hopefully finish. Run Expression Blend. So the button should disappear after the colours come back. Done. I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. I just hit yes. Yeah. There may be a setting in there. I have to look into it for you. But yeah, I suppose, I mean, there's two ways to look at that. One is again, a one-man band going back and forth a lot. But what I've found, and I'll show you the app that I've built with these later on as well, but is that I'll spend a lot of time in Blend doing a lot of stuff, and then go back to Visual Studio and spend a lot of time in Visual Studio doing a lot of stuff. I wouldn't really chop and change like I am here. So I haven't really noticed it. I just hit reload and carry on. I haven't even had time to think of turning it off. So it hasn't bothered me that much.
You can turn it off.
You can? Excellent. There you go. Okay. So any questions about Blend and Visual Studio at this stage? No? Covering that off in a minute. I will. So, Nigel, if you'd like to be a hardcore hard hat and move beyond Visual Studio Express, yeah. So the story is, if you have Ultimate or some full version of Visual Studio installed, before you install the Windows Phone Developer Tools, you won't even get Express. I know this very well because I've had to reinstall a few times over the last few days, and I have to uninstall my full version of Visual Studio, uninstall all the phone tools, and reinstall the phone tools to get the new version of Express back. Anyway, so it won't actually give you Express if you have the full Visual Studio. Why would you want the full Visual Studio Express? So you saw what it could do. It was pretty amazing. So what you'll get out of something like Ultimate or full version is you will still be able to write your apps in the full version of Visual Studio. You'll get additional code analysis tools, static analysis tools only, because the code is running in a VM, so it won't be able to do dynamic analysis for you. But you can use things like FXCop and the code analysis stuff, code metrics, things like ReSharper plugins, Code Rush. All those things will work for you in 2010, the full version. And you'll get a better debugging experience. So you can have more control over breakpoints, so conditional breakpoints, and some additional tracing functionality, as well as obviously integration with TFS. If you use TFS or other source control tools, you can integrate with those. So basically the whole plugin setup that you get with the full Visual Studio will work as well. Okay, so I can just show you quite simply by closing down Express. I can open up the full version of Visual Studio. Okay, 2010 Ultimate. I really should press the button, shouldn't I? Okay. So this is Ultimate. I can just go File, Open, find that solution I was working on. So the solution I created in Express opens fine in full version of Visual Studio. Even remembers where I was. And so in here where I've got ReSharper installed, I'm getting all my things. See down the right-hand side there? All the little tabs that are showing me what's wrong with my code. Things like unused imports. I can Alt-Enter, ReSharper, and use unused directives. Okay. So things like that. I mean, that's not vanilla Visual Studio. That's a ReSharper add-in, but it's available to me. I love that, and I use it all the time. So I would use the full version for that sort of thing. Okay. Make sense? Excellent. realize I'm running a bit early here. It's taken me a lot. It's been a lot shorter than I thought it would be. Yes, yes. So if I open the page, that's the code behind. So there it is there. It's even realised that we've got the design time data bound up and that sort of stuff. So if you want to see how that data binding works, it is an important thing that you saw that I data bound in code to the actual downloaded XML file, but that's working fine with the data binding I used in Expression Blend. So the reason for that is it's using the D namespace that was referred to. Okay, so this line here, let's zoom in a little bit. Okay, so there's a special namespace for Expression Blend. And if you look down at our list box, okay, item source is binding to color. All right, so that's declarative binding, and I'm basically killing that in the code by saying item source equals. All right. And that color is going to be as a resource that's bound to my sample data somewhere in there. We'll find it. Anyway, so you understand that. Okay. So summing up, what do we see? We thought about the two personas, Hardhat versus Beret, the fact that we do actually have to work with both personas most of the time. So hands up who has a special designer that works with them on laying out all this stuff for them and doing all the sexy work. So like 2 hands in the room. Everyone else has to do it themselves. Okay. So you really will be working with Expression Blend to do your animations, transitions, states, this sort of stuff. It's really the best place to do them all. We saw Visual Studio Express for Windows Phone, which is free, downloadable today. You saw what it could do. There's not a lot that it's missing at all. Conditional breakpoints, I didn't show you there, but that's where you basically right-click on the breakpoint and say, only break when value equals, whatever. Useful if you're iterating through a lot of stuff, but otherwise, you can get away with the standard breakpoints. And we saw Expression Blend for Windows Phone. You saw that it was a very powerful design tool. You saw about timelines, animations, states, easing, all that sort of stuff. Again, which you could do in code, but it's going to make your life a lot easier to do it in Expression Blend. And you probably understood why you might want to go for a full version. A lot of the time, the reason you're going to use a full version is because it's provided by work, right? That's what you use on your desktop, so you're just going to use it anyway. I will just take you through the application that I've written over the past few months. It's a portable iPhone application, and I'll show you the components that make it up. It will help you understand what I was doing there with the list, okay, a bit better. So this is an application where you can go online and you can create a tour, and that tour gets packaged up into a bunch of XML and content files, so image files, audio files, this sort of stuff. So this is a Wellington tour, but I could easily change it to some other type of tour and compile that app within about 3 or 4 minutes just by changing a few settings in my XML and rerunning the build. Okay, so can everyone see that? Okay, so basically what there is a list of tours, and that is basically identical to that list I built of colours. It's made up of small components. The item template has a picture in it. It has some words in it. It has some other little pictures, the little icons here. That actually says 6 hours, 0 minutes, and 13 stops. So, and all I do then is I data bind to the response I get back from the server. And that layout is all done by Silverlight. And likewise, there is a list of information pages. And there's one little trick I've done here where when you go into one of these pages, you see that it actually matches really well with the layout on my phone, the theme on my phone, the black background, red highlight. That's actually HTML there. And what I'm doing is before I load it into the web browser, I'm appending to the beginning of it, prepending to the beginning of it, a CSS file that I've dynamically created. So if I go and change my theme, to a white background, with an orange highlight. Ugh. Go back into my app. Okay. So a few things have happened there. I'm actually using a transparency mask on the foreground color to do the low alpha on those things. So rather than actually having a grey version, a dark grey and a light grey version, I'm just saying make it 50% black or 80% black or 80% white. So it looks nice on either theme. And when I load up those pages that have HTML in them, look at that. So the link is styled correctly. Oh, you can't even see it, but it's actually, that link is actually orange. And it's black on white, and that's HTML. So I've gone and detected the background color, detected the foreground color and the accent color, created a CSS file, appended it to the HTML, then sent it to the web browser. So I'm quite proud of that. I thought it was quite good. And then, in each tour, you can start the tour, you can walk through it. Again, there's the HTML on these pages. These pages need more design. I need to talk to designers about it. You can walk through them. I'm using some of the metaphors from the phone. Okay, so back in the Contacts app, you can click on any. I'll show you that while we're there. Click on the letters. So the letter A, tap on that, and I get a shortcut to all the letters. Okay, so I've seen that and said, there's no control that does that, but it looks similar to what I want to do with my tour stops. So when you're in a tour, you want to jump from one stop to another. Go on here, tap on the tour number, and you get that pop up. Okay, I need to tune it a bit so it looks a bit more identical to the one in the Contacts app. But if there was lots of stops there, you could scroll up and down through them. Tap on any one of them, it takes you to it. Okay. So yes. So any questions in general about phone development for the phone, how we do it? Yep.
Two questions really. Firstly,
Yes. I've had no issues with it at all. It just seems to work. So, yeah. What's that? Oh, the question was source control in Blend. I haven't used it specifically, but I haven't had any issues with it. I tend to do all my check-ins and check-outs in the studio, but yeah, I think. Yeah.
And the second thing is developing with the emulator.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have any functionality to simulate recording pictures?
Yep. I can show you that. So it's quite funny, actually. I don't have an app to show it, but if you were to create the camera task in your app and say capture image, it'll actually pop the camera app, which has a moving box inside it. So it doesn't actually emulate a camera, but it has a box that moves around the edges. So when you hit snap, you can see you've captured the box at that position, so you know you've got a new image and you can use it. So, yeah. Yep. Yeah. There are. There's a big fat PDF design guide that will come out with the tools, and that goes down to things like touch target sizes. So I've written another app where I can't quite tap on an object, and I should go back to the design guides because they have a specific, I think it's 7 millimeters by 7 millimeters the touch target has to be. And they will actually check those things when you submit your app through the marketplace. Though I don't think they'll get the ruler and measure them, but they'll probably look at the XAML and say, well, based on that many pixels and size, that touch target's going to be too small, and they'll reject the app. So you do have to think about those things. So, yeah. No, you submit. I don't know for sure. We don't know until it happens. But as I understand it, you submit your ZAP. So the question was, will they check how your app behaves? You'll submit your ZAP, but they will static analyze that because the code's in there. They can just reflect it and have a look at it, and they will check for things like, are you using GPS when you said you weren't going to? Are you using the file system you said you weren't going to? So you can declare those things. And they will check, in general, they'll probably run it and check for things like touch targets and does it look all right, that sort of stuff. But in the session at 5:30, which we're talking about Marketplace, we'll go through that in detail and talk about how the process happens, how you can adhere to those guidelines, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. So there's two more slides to finish off with, just basically saying that. So what next? Straight when you get home, go to developer.windowsphone.com and hit download, and then do it again on September the 16th. If you want to ask me questions, contact me, whatever, I'm fine with that on Twitter. So question? Yeah. probably uninstall, reinstall is the thing. And going from beta to release is going to be a lot nicer than it was going from CDP to beta. They had a lot of breaking changes, a lot less breaking changes now. Yeah, you can uninstall is quite smoothly at the moment in the beta, so yeah, it's quite good. So it really, in terms of Ultimate and that sort of stuff, it's just going to put in project templates, and then it's going to add in the XNA stuff and the expression blend stuff if you don't have it, and those will just uninstall out fine. Yep, so apart from getting in touch with me, there's also a LinkedIn group, a New Zealand Windows Phone Developer LinkedIn group. It's open access, come along and join. There's questions and answers in there, things you can talk to people. And as we get close to launch, I think it'll be quite important to contact each other because in terms of developer devices, they're pretty scarce, and we might want to look at sharing around zip files for testing and that sort of stuff. Happened in the iPhone space as well early on. People would send each other builds of their apps to test out because there weren't so many iPhones around. So we should be doing that with Windows Phone as well. So a couple of sessions to go to. Just later on, there's geolocation, and then this after at 5:30 we're talking about marketplace. We'll look at some case studies of iPhone apps that have made lots of money. We'll look at the content policies and the marketplace policies and how you can get through, how to sign up, how to submit, all that sort of stuff. And then tomorrow and the next day there's a whole bunch of other things. The two Silverlight in-depth 1 and 2 will probably be key for anyone interested in going deeper into. I've gone very, very gloss over the top of these things, so if you want deeper information on that, then go along to those. Cool. Thanks, everyone.